What's going on, everybody? Cheers. Happy Wednesday, or whatever day of the week it is when you're watching or listening to this. Welcome to the With Her Two Hands podcast, where each week we celebrate the women who build, fix, and make the things that make the world go round with her own two hands. I am your host, Bogi. Welcome, all. So good to see some familiar names in the comments and in the viewing section. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not familiar with Her Two Hands, this series has been going on for like 4 years now. We're on episode 203, I think. And each week we sit down with a different incredible tradeswoman to hear her story, the challenges she's faced, her wins, and just hear all about her journey in and through the trades. And so I thank you guys for all being here and being part of this journey of normalizing women in the trades. We've got a really awesome guest tonight. I am very excited to get to meet her. We've been trying to get her on for a long time now. The stars finally aligned, and we're here live with Rachel Bohnet. She is a fabricator. She is a welder. She is a business owner. She is a mom. She is also a TV star. If you're familiar with the History Channel's Rust Valley Restorers, I'm really excited to hear all about the many intricacies of her journey. But before we do, I want to do a big quick thank you to our sponsor for tonight's episode. As you know, this time of year, AAPEX and SEMA is coming up fast around the corner. And if you know me at all, you know that I believe that having the right tools, the best continuing education, and a robust list of contacts of resources is crucial. And every year at AAPEX, it's my go-to event to check all of those boxes. And if you're in the automotive industry, it should be yours too. You can discover all the latest and the greatest in tools and parts and get in some unparalleled training and networking at America's largest automotive aftermarket event. AAPEX 2024 is at the Venetian Expo and Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. And this year it's taking place November 5th through 7th. So don't sleep on this one. I absolutely promise you it is worth it. There's a link down in the description below to register for your inside track to the automotive aftermarket. And with that, without further ado, I'm going to bring on tonight's amazing guest, Miss Rachel Bohnet. Hello.
Hello.
How are you, my dear?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Bonnet. Yeah.
Bonnet.
Pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless I'm feeling fancy, then people say Bonnet. Rachel Bohnet.
That works too. I was debating that one. I was like, am I getting it right?
Yeah, that happens.
So tell the fine folks at home who you are, what you do, where you're from, just in a nutshell, and then we'll go back in time and hear your story.
Yeah. So I'm Rachel. I live in a little tiny town in British Columbia in Canada. I run my own business, Country Custom Fabricating, which I have had since 2016. I am a mom of two beautiful children, 13 and 11. They are now. Wild, but yeah, so busy working mom, trying to raise my two babies and live a full life.
You've got a teenager and a preteen. Your hands are
Yeah,
full. And a business.
Yes, they are very full.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you have been in welding like since you were a wee one, right?
Yeah, since I was 15.
Yeah. How'd you get into it to begin with?
Well, it was high school for me where, in I think it was grade 9, going into grade 10, where, the counselor said, hey, Rach, you're not doing super great in all your academic courses. And, you should probably start thinking about doing something else in order to make sure that you graduate. Academics was not my thing. Academics was, maybe it was my sister's thing, but I just knew for me that I was having a really tough time. And so he suggested that I try some of the supplementary courses. And I looked, and it was woodwork, metalwork, automotive. There was stuff like sewing and cooking and stuff, which I tried all of it. But the first one I took was a metalwork course and a woodworking course. So I took them kind of back to back. And I loved it. I just was like, you can do all of these things with your hands and just build these things. And I started taking all of those courses, and I started getting A's in them, and I started doing better in math, and I started doing just better in school altogether because finally I understood things in a way that made sense for me in my brain. And I think that's a huge thing for people in
Yes.
school, is that, math doesn't necessarily make sense for everybody until you can utilize it in the way that your brain works.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was huge.
I love that so much, that you started doing better in your other classes because you were now engaged and you had a way to apply this knowledge. And that is something that I think gets missed a lot when we have these
Yeah.
conversations about finding the different strengths that kids have and finding what's going to be their path. And it's the typical, like the guidance counselor, like you had, says, you're not doing so great in academics. You need a plan B. And it's almost
You're
like
this way.
this. Right. And it's almost like there's this inferred, like, less than kind of thing versus this idea of like just finding the thing that lights somebody up and gets them
Yeah.
engaged in school. And like, oh my gosh, it makes a difference in all of the rest of your classes. Who would have thunk it?
It does. It's amazing for me to know, and especially as I raised two children myself, is understanding that no two brain works the same. Like people can be very academic, but then their hands-on knowledge is not nearly as strong. And so to know that and to understand that, especially as teachers in an education system, there should be nothing lesser about a trade because it's obviously very important as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I think that it was a mix of me understanding how my brain works and what made sense for me and what I loved, but also having an incredibly supportive teacher. Which, this is we're talking 25 years ago that I did this, and the teacher that I had, we had people coming in to the classes, and I would be helping them, and I would be they would ask me questions, and as I got into the few years of it, and my shop teacher said, Rachel, you need to be a shop teacher. I think you need to teach people how to do this.
Interesting.
Which I had in my back of my head of that, how much I would love to do that, but I knew how much I just really wanted to create things first. I just really wanted to see. I wanted to try everything, but he was the one that pushed me. And so I don't come from a blue collar background. My dad was a lab tech, and my mom was a secretary at a doctor's office. So for me, that was very, my dad would come home and I'd be like, hey, Dad, I changed the starter in your truck. And he'd be like, you did what? You did what? And I think he was supportive of it, but I also don't think that he understood it. And so there wasn't a big push from him at that point of my life for when I said, Dad, I want to be a welder. And he said, okay, but are you sure? Are you sure? There's lots of other options, opportunities to make money and do different things. And are you sure this is what you want? And yeah, Dad, I think it is. And so it was a different scenario for him to have. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, 3 daughters, 1 boy.
Oh, wow.
So for me to just be like, yeah, this is what I want to do when I grow up, I think it just threw him off a little bit. He was supportive, but I think it just took him a little while to get a grip on exactly what it is that I was wanting to do.
Amazing. I so resonate with everything that you just said. Apparently we must be the same age because it was 25 years for me. Same kind of thing. My shop teacher was like, you should be a shop instructor. And I'm like, no, I want to be hands-on.
I did for a while. At least give me time to throw me into it all. Yeah.
Totally. Very parallel journeys. That's awesome. So you had an amazing teacher. That's not really the norm back 25 years ago. Were you the first female in these classes, or had they had other female students before?
I think there was girls that popped in and out of the classes, and I had one girlfriend that just said, you know what, Rachel, you're doing this. I want to join this class too. And on our tests, we were all doing our tests, and I did mine, and then I looked at hers, and she had doodled, cats and hearts and stuff. I didn't even actually answer any of the questions. She's like, no, this is not for me. And so I think that the people that were in it back at that time never took it seriously. And whereas I knew that I did. I knew that I did to the point that I was in a bit of a transitional phase. And my mom, having 3 daughters, both my sisters, they had ran for Miss Oliver, the Miss Oliver pageant kind of thing. Okay. So my mom said, Rachel, I think you should do this. And I said, I don't know if it's for me. And then I said, okay, fine. I'll do it if Mommy is what you want me to do. And so I went in and ran for Miss Oliver at the Youth Ambassadors. And I would show up in these big dresses with my work boots on, And Mom was like, kick off your shoes, Rachel. You got to put on your fancy ones. I said, okay, fine. And I stood in front of my whole entire town at the age of 15 and said, when I grow up, I want to be a welder. Everybody broke out into laughter.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm standing there in a formal gown saying to my whole town, when I grow up, I want to be a welder. And it just blew my mind because I just thought, why is everybody laughing? Why is everybody laughing at me? Like, this is actually truly what I want to do. This isn't a joke. And now I can laugh at them because here I am 25 years later doing the exact same thing.
Right. And famous and on TV and super successful and have a great life. Yeah. So neener. Did it, the way you said that, like it blew your mind, like it didn't make any sense. Did you have a grasp at that time of like, this is not the norm for women to do, or were you just kind of pursuing what you wanted and didn't give a damn about what everybody else thought?
I don't think I really recognized how hard it would be at that point. And I had, because I became friends with, the guys in the shop classes, and I had, the people that I spent my time with outside of school. We spent our times working on trucks and, going out 4x4ing and hunting and doing all these things. And I created a community of people that just accepted me exactly as I was. So I didn't think I was different. I didn't think that I was anything, out of the norm.
Yeah.
And so for me at that point, it didn't hit me. And it actually didn't hit me until I went to college. The first run at it is, so right out of the hop, I signed up for college, a few hours away from home. And I got there and I got treated horribly. And I mean horribly. And, I'm the only girl in the whole trades building at the college that I was at. And I'm there to learn. I'm not there because I've already learned everything. But a lot of the guys there, they grew up blue collar. Their dads have taught them things. They already knew these things where I didn't. And so when I walked into that space and the way that people talked to me and the way they looked at me, I actually didn't finish college there because I felt like I couldn't do it because I said, I don't know what it is, like what is happening in this place, but people are so mean and there was no acceptance and the teachers were mean and everything about it was a pretty not traumatizing, but pretty hard situation to be 18 years old and to try to walk into a space where it's only men. Right. So I dropped out. I moved back home and I spent a few months working and I went into a little tractor shop and the guys, they were great. And I just thought, no, I don't think I'm ready to give up on this. And so maybe I'll go to a college a little closer to home. So that's where I came to the college that I, did my whole apprenticeship at. But I showed up there and it was a much different experience. And there was, I think, 2 other girls in the whole trades building and all trades. And so I kind of had a few people to chit chat with and kind of stick together with, but it, there's still the hard moments of people are like, why are you here? You belong here. But even having those 1 or 2 girls and having some teachers that treated me with a lot more respect was a huge difference. And so I finished my school. I went back to back to back, did all the years of school. I was a journeyman at 21 years old. Wow. And it was amazing to me, that space. As soon as you have a couple people that respect you and support you, the difference in how you feel that you can do in those situations.
That is so, you are like the poster child of like the good and the bad of what can be when it comes to trade schools and how quickly the industries in the trades like can lose good people, right? Like we almost lost you. How sad would that have been? Like this driven young person who wanted to build things, who wanted to make things and wanted to be a part of the industry. We almost lost you because of a not supportive environment. And it's such a great message to other people to know, like, if you're in a crappy school where you're not feeling welcome and supported, that there are other places, there are other schools, and not to give up on that thing that is calling to you.
I was so grateful for that shift. It guided my world. It guided everything that I wanted out of my life and my journey of what it is that I've worked so hard to get to. And so, I am. It is wild how just a couple people that treat you with respect and treat you with support can make such a huge difference for you.
100%. I've mentioned this study in the past on this podcast, but there's a study that I always quote. It's one my mother told me about 100 years ago. Is this research study where they showed that the number one key to success with a child is not how much money they have, not how much education they have, not how smart they are, not like any of those things that we typically think of as the keys to success. It's having one person who believes in them and how much of a difference that makes, like having a great mentor, a great teacher, a supportive family. Like it just takes one or two. Like that makes all the difference in the world for a kid to become an awesome adult, a successful adult, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And even that journey alone has, I believe, made me a better mother, so I can understand how to support my kids in such a different way. It's like, you be whatever you want. You don't want to do this, then don't. You want it, like, this feels good for you, then yeah, I'm fully behind you in whatever it is that feels good. And so yeah, it's a huge thing.
I love it. Okay, I have to ask because it sounds like you did a bunch of the classes. You did some automotive, it sounds like. So you were replacing your dad's starter. You did some woodworking, you did some welding. Why did you settle on welding? What about that called to you?
So I think I actually had a physical coin toss with it, because I wanted to be a mechanic, because I had all those years of working on trucks and doing all those things, but there was something about creating things that I was so drawn to. And being in the welding classes that we had, we made a little working like flywheel and little air driven engine and stuff, and we made every single part and piece in that. With all the different, we used lathes, we used we forged these little flywheels out of aluminum. We just did all those things, which I absolutely blew my mind. That I was like, you can make all these things with your hands. This is incredible. And so I did really love that, but I also loved the idea of, like, this is broken on my truck. I want to figure out what's wrong with this, and then I want to be able to fix it. And there was something about that I loved, that I was able to do all of that work. And I think my dad's reaction the day that I showed up and his truck was all fixed, and he thought he was going to have to spend thousands of dollars to do it, and his 16-year-old daughter did it for him. There's something about that felt good. So it was a coin toss, but in the end of it all, I think for me, I love the creation of what you can do, the variety of the things you can do when it comes to welding, because it's not just cut and dry. You're doing one thing when you're a welder, whereas that's kind of with a mechanic. You're in the mechanic version of it, and that's kind of all that there is. You're fixing motors and transmissions, and you can do hydraulics, all that stuff. But for me, welding is endless.
Yeah,
it's absolutely endless on what you're able to do with it, and that drew me in for sure.
Okay. I like that it, like, full circle now, later in your life, you're doing like a little bit of both with Rust Valley, but we'll come back to that in a second. I have to ask, this school that you went to, was this a public high school that had all of these great classes? Like,
yeah, I grew up in a teeny tiny little town in British Columbia, Oliver, BC. The best place to grow up, if you ask me. I had great friends. I had great people. The lifestyle that we had. I grew up, in my more of my high school years, with fishing, hunting, camping, all that kind of stuff. And it's such a small community of people. So the people that were in my shop class, I'm camping with them also on the weekends, and I loved that mentality. And I think it's even the fact that the teacher offered all of those classes.
yeah.
And he did all of the courses, and he was such an amazing teacher. And I mean, I think anybody that was in any of his classes got that support to whatever it is that they're doing now. They got that knowledge, and they got just so much from him. He is just such an incredible mentor for so many people.
That's awesome. It was the same teacher for all the classes, huh? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Pretty cool.
Do you know, I mean, is he still teaching?
So no, he's not teaching anymore. So it's funny, because a couple years back, I got asked to go to that same school to do a women in trades talk, and of course I said yes, like, absolutely, I'm going to go to my old school. I hadn't been in there for years and years, and I walked in there, and it's the same welding booth, and I'm there at almost 40 years old, and I'm teaching girls that are 15 years old, the same age as I was when I started in there. It was pretty nostalgic to be in there in the first place.
Heck
But
yeah.
to be able to be in there and just be like, oh, this is how, I was you. This is where I was, and this is how I started. And so I did this incredible couple days with these girls who were trying to get in, thinking about getting into the trade. And then the next day that I was there, Mr. Lang showed up, and he came into the shop and everything, and may have been a little emotional, shed a few tears, because it was just such an amazing thing. Like
Yeah.
he was just such a support and such a guidance in my world, and for him to show up in that space for me was really incredible.
That's fantastic. I love that. What a cool experience.
Yeah.
You've definitely got some supporters. We've got somebody in the comments saying he's worked side by side with you and that you are so awesome and very talented.
Oh, so that's Michael. He's great. So we were on the Hot Wheels Ultimate Challenge together.
Okay.
He was one of the carpoolers on that show with me.
Okay.
Yeah, so cool.
Very cool. I want to
Yeah.
get into your TV stuff that you've done, but like, if you're anything like me, which I sense that you are, is like the TV piece is like a little bit of who you are, and like there's so many other layers, and I don't want to gloss over all these other layers.
Yeah.
So tell me, you get out of school, you get out of these programs, and you're going into the industry. You've done a bunch of different types of welding, and like I know that's what drew you to it, like that there's so many different ways that you can be a welder. How did you pick what the first thing is that you did professionally, and tell us about some of the different iterations of your career?
Yeah, well, I mean, gosh, it's a doozy for sure. But so getting out of school, I mean, first I just went around, where my college was. I went around Kamloops and I just started handing out resumes, and I just went to everywhere. And my sister drove me in her little station wagon car. I said, "Drive me here, here, here." And I ended up getting a job at a trucking company, and so they hired me right away as soon as I was done school. For international, which was really cool. Worked for them for a few months, but they only had a few months of work. So they shifted me to their kind of one of their partner companies, which was a road construction company. And so I got in on there, and I did basically my whole apprenticeship with them, the majority of my apprenticeship through them. And so that was a dirty job. That was like, I'm so glad that was the job that I started out in, because I learned so much. Because it's when you're in construction, and your people are bringing in all of this equipment, everything is dirty. I got a lot of really crummy jobs, and but it teaches you so much. It gives you a bit of grit to know that you can power through any of these jobs that are thrown at you, but also to learn really quickly, because these things have to be done. We need this needs to be back on the highway to get asphalt, like for laying asphalt, for crushers, any of those kinds of things. So I had a lot of time working on that kind of stuff. And in that job, I also had very supportive crew. And so I had a couple guys that were the foremen in the shop there. And I think they kind of took me in like a daughter and a granddaughter. And, they looked at me like I was their family. And so they're very protective, but they were also very patient, and they wanted to teach me everything they knew. And, how to sharpen a drill bit, how to use a plumb bob, all these little things that I don't think people learn as much these days. But they taught me all of it, and with patience and grace and love. And it was just I am so grateful for those, Max and Gary. That's their names. They were just some of the best people that I had ever got to work with, and that was a great job. But then I shifted from that, and I went, oh gosh, then it got like back to back on all the things that I did. Moved back kind of closer to back home, and I worked for a company called Brutus, and for Normar, and they built Brutus boxes, so service decks for Branch Tractor and all that kind of stuff. And that was probably one of my favorite jobs, because it was all aluminum, and they basically give you a pallet of pieces, and then you have to put them all together to make a service deck for a truck. You're building it all, and it's a lot of riveting, a lot of welding, and then a lot of plumbing for hydraulics and stuff. And that was a really, really neat job. I loved that. But I knew that I wanted to make more money than what I was making there. So then I moved way up north, and I ran a service truck on the oil rigs.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that I learned a lot. That was a lot of a learning experience and how people treat you in those scenarios. Because here's little me showing up driving a 5-ton service truck, and how many times that I got called a rum runner, thinking that I'm just driving this big truck to take booze to dry camps, or to, you know, there's very little respect that I got showing up on those job
Wow.
sites until I did my work. And so I think that for me had shaped how I showed up as a worker, where it is sad because I had to work twice as hard to get the respect from people, because I would show up and people would be like, she can't do that. And then so I just put my nose down and I went straight to work, and I did absolutely everything that I was asked, even in minus 48 weather when I couldn't feel my fingers, couldn't feel my toes. And I was like, Rach, you just show up, you just do the work, because these guys are thinking you can't do it. You're going to do it, and you're going to show them you can.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that was a challenging one for me.
Oh, you really threw yourself into some of the most like industrial and dirty and least respected for women, particularly to be in, like the diesel side of things, the construction side. This last job that you had, I mean, that's like that. Those are pretty intensive spots. Did you find those jobs with intention? Like, were you seeking out those specific types of jobs, or was it just whoever was going to give you a shot and give you a chance?
Yeah, I think it was more of that, because there are so few women. It wasn't years and years until I found another woman that was in welding. There was a few that were in electrical. Maybe you'd find some in carpentry, but for mechanics and welding, it took a long time before you would see another woman out there doing the same thing I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that even if I was applying for jobs that were a little less gritty, I I just don't think that there was a lot of space that men would hire me.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of got thrown into spaces where there was work, and that
Right.
they're like, we know we need people, so we'll give her a go. Let's try this diversity thing, see how it works.
I mean, you would think it would be the opposite, that like the less intensive kind of places would be more willing to take on a woman, but these are like these like
Yeah.
down and dirty jobs that are like, I guess they were so desperate at the time. They're like, whatever, we just need people,
Yeah.
and at the end they wound up getting a really amazing worker, but you
Well,
know.
sometimes I think that people hired me in to be like, ha, like, let's just do this, give this a go, just to get,
See
for
what
some
happens.
giggles here, see what happens. And yeah, there was nothing that I would like. I was like, no, I'm going to get this done. If someone gives me a job, then I will get this done. And I think I had this mentality of learning how to work around the different scenarios of the men I would encounter, and how to
Okay.
persevere through it without taking offense to anything, without, there's just so many types of people that you will encounter doing these types of jobs, and learning how to do it without taking too much to heart, and learning to gain the respect from people around you. That's huge.
100% it is. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a little easier when you're in an environment that already is supporting you and you've got allies and you've got
Mhm.
mentors and people taking you in like a granddaughter and
Yeah.
a daughter.
Yeah.
And I just, word to all the guys watching, like, notice how she remembered the names of all of the amazing people she worked with,
Oh,
even from her first job, right? Like, what you
I'll
do makes
never
a
forget.
difference, right? Yes. How you
Mhm.
treat the people who are in your shop and in your job and on the, the ground with you, like, they remember
Yeah.
you. It matters.
Please remember. Yeah.
um, I was gonna say something and then I lost it because I have my own ADHD brain. But
Don't we all?
gotta love it. Okay, so when did starting your own business come into play? When did that happen?
Wow. Well, so I was working at a mine at the time, and I got pregnant, and then at the time I was married at the time, and then I got pregnant, I had a baby, then I went back to work kind of in between, and then I had my second baby, and I was I loved being a mom. I loved being a mom so much, and I was just like, I just want to be home with my babies. But then I felt myself. I lived on a ranch at the time, and I just felt myself so drawn to just creating things. And so it was 2016 when I started my business. How Kira would have been 3, and Alaya would have been, or 4, and Alaya would have been 2. And I just started going into the shop when the kids were napping, and I just started building things out of old horseshoes. Was funny how it was, and it was kind of Christmas time, and so I started creating these things out of horseshoes, these ornaments and trees and snowman and stuff like that, just for something to do, just to get that creative edge that I had trapped inside me. I needed to do something. And then people started buying them. I thought, oh, this is kind of fun. And so as time went on, I decided to be like, I'm gonna start my business. I want to start this little side business while I get to be home and raise my babies exactly how I want them to be raised. I was doing craft fairs, selling things on Etsy, and just kind of enjoying the process of it and just letting it be whatever it was. And I would just build whatever I was in the mood for. Started building, cool tables out of, augers and old tractor parts and old, tools and stuff, whatever I could get my hands on. I just started building all these fun things, and I loved it. And as my babies got older, and my life had shifted a little bit when at the point that I moved out and on my own. And then I actually got a job back at the very first place that I worked. So I got a job back at the construction place. But I said, this is my scenario, single mom trying to do it on my own now. So I need to work around my hours, make sure that I can be home for my kids. And they were so great. And so they let me work around the kids, schedule. So I could be there in the morning and get them off school and then be home in time for them to be back from school. And then, but then I still had a little bit of time to be creating things in the shop that I was at, the house I was at, on the side. But as that kind of continued, I was like, well, I don't think that I want to be working at this construction place anymore. Like, things were picking up and people started asking me to build hand railings and custom tables and all of these things. And I think I could do something with this. And then I just decided to throw it all in and go full business. That would have been probably 2019, I think, that I did that. And
just in time for COVID.
It was just in time for COVID. But that was a good thing for me, because everybody was home building decks and building things and be like, I need hand railing for this, I need this for this. And so that's when I was needed. And it kind of COVID worked out great, because I ran a shop from my house and I was able to do everything for my kids that I wanted to do for my kids, but yet start my business. And I'm so grateful for the way that it all played out. And now, now I rent a bigger shop, and I've had employees and stuff like that. And it's been a slow transition, but now I'm in the thick of it now, which is amazing. But it doesn't have to be fast. And I'm grateful that it wasn't, because it gave me all that time for my kids when they were at the ages that they needed me. And as they get older and need me less, then I can put a little more energy into my business and still make sure that they have all the things that they need from me as a mom, but still get to, to do something that I'm completely passionate about.
What an incredible life you've created for yourself, and what an amazing story and way that all came together. I mean, I guess it definitely says that you're doing the right thing when all the pieces kind of come together like that. I love it. And I love that there is a way, right? Like, there's always a way to make it work. Especially when you have supportive people. Like, the fact that construction company was willing to take you and work with your hours. And I think that's a topic we talk about often in the trades with women. It's like, if you do want to have kids, if you do want to have a family, like, how does that work? The trades are not generally very friendly to parents who want to take time, but it is possible. Like, it is possible. And then I like your slow growth in the business. I think you're such a great example of it is never too late to do anything. Because you came to being a business owner a little later in life. You came to TV a little later in life. Like, all of that started popping off later in your life. And I think often we're like, we feel like if we haven't gotten there yet, it's too late, right? And you're just such a great example of all things in their time.
Oh, thank you.
I love it.
But it's like, I think people have it in their head that everything should happen so quickly. And I know I even still get like that in my business, where it's like, I'm here, but I should be here. Right. I've done this, but I should be here. But I think that that's every person in whatever it is they do, especially within business. It's like you think that, yes, I've made it here, but I want to be here. But they don't give themselves that second to take a step back and be like,
No.
look where I am, look what I've done. You should be proud of those steps, no matter how small they might be. It's still a step.
Yep. Oh, guilty. Absolutely. Right. Like
Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
us driven folks, right? Like people who don't have a lot of drive, maybe it's different for them, but if you're driven, you never seem to stop to realize like how far you've come, and we're constantly
Yeah.
moving the bar on ourselves. But it's nice to hear from other people and see that moment of reflection of like, yes, like it is possible to move slow and still get there. It is possible to do all the things in your own
Yeah.
time, and that it's never too late. I love it.
Yeah.
So TV happened. How did TV find you? Did you find TV? Tell us this story.
Well, yeah. So this is when I was, running my business, and um, I was, just it was the slow roll of it, and I wasn't so busy. And then James from Dubs Customs, him and I went to school together. He
Oh,
was doing his second year when I was doing my third year, and so we met briefly there. And even when I had started my business, I had come to him a couple times, seeing if he was hiring, which he wasn't at the time. And then I just asked a couple questions about business, and we had a couple conversations. And then when he started into the Rust Valley stuff, I think it was his second season into it, and he's like, "Rach, I got all these big builds that I need to do, and I don't think I can do them in the time frame they need them by myself." And he's like, "I'd love to have you come and work for me." And I was like, "Absolutely." And it wasn't full time, so that was great for me, so I could still run my business and work around my hours with my kids. And so he hired me on, and gosh, I had never been on TV, not anything. And it was the funniest thing, because it was the first day that I was there. So they're miking me up, and I'm so nervous, and all these things, all these cameras and all these things are happening around me. And they said, "Okay, we're going to get a shot of you walking from your truck into the shop." And I said, "Okay." And I'm walking from my truck to the shop, staring directly into the camera. And and they said, "Okay, whoa, 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 you can't look at the camera because you have to look natural." And I said, "I don't know how to look natural. Like, you've got a camera in my face. How do you look natural?" So then I had to do it again, and then trying to not move my hands like a robot or like look at the ground. And it was an odd thing to be a part of, and just to kind of get thrown into. And it's just like, just don't worry about the cameras around you, just go to work. So James is showing me to do things, but I got a camera, this close to my face.
right.
And oh gosh, it took a very long time for me to get used to it and comfortable with it. And even it wasn't even the first season that we did that I was even comfortable, and trying to not feel awkward all the time. But it was a pretty chill show to be on, and working with James was awesome. I hadn't done a lot of the automotive stuff other than the stuff I'd done in high school of body work and building panels for cars and doing a lot of
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And so I learned a ton from him, a ton of new tools that I didn't get to use in my own business. So it was an incredible experience. And so that first year, I think we built we built 2 cars for that first season. And so we did the bomber truck, and then we did the Battle Act, which was a hit to pass car that we had built.
Okay.
And then and that was an amazing experience for me to do that. And then they asked me to come back, the next season, and then the next season. And so yeah, I did get to be part of, I think it was 3 seasons in total
Nice.
that I was part of for that, and building just some incredible cars, and meeting some incredible people along the way in the car industry, which was amazing. Yeah, we did all that, and then one day I had actually got an Instagram message from some person and asking if I wanted to be part of another show. And I thought, this is spam or some sort of scam. And I said, "I'll answer all the questions until they ask me for my banking information." So I was going along with it all, and then they said, "Well, yes, like you kind of moved into this, like we want to have an audition tape from you." Like, gosh, I've never done an audition tape before, so just trying to set up a camera and do all these things and send off an audition tape. And then they ended up saying, "Yeah, like we want you to be part of this show," but I had no details of what it was. They didn't give you any information. And so I just kind of said, "Yeah, let's do it." And then they said, "You have to fly to England flying to Manchester to
Oh,
do
wow.
this show. It's the Hot Wheels Ultimate Challenge. So you're ultimately building life-size Hot Wheel cars. And it took a while to let it sink in that it was a real thing. And then I think for me, the hardest part was that I would be leaving my children for 3 months. It's like 2.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that, but my kids were like, "Mom, you have to do this. Like, you have to do this. It's Hot Wheels." Yeah, but that was just such an incredible experience to be
Yeah.
part of that one.
That is so very
So
cool. I love that. Uh-oh.
I think
I think your earbuds died. That's all right.
Oh, okay.
Can
I
you
can hear you there.
you can hear me? All right. All good. All
Yeah.
good. How very cool. And you have your cheerleaders at home saying, "Mom, you got to go. You got to
Oh,
go." I
yeah.
love it.
Sorry, everything is happening here. There we go. Got it
That's
figured out.
always the
Yeah.
technology thing.
Yeah.
That's such a cool story. So do you like doing TV?
I can't say that it's like my favorite thing to do. I think that once I got back and I decided to actually like start some YouTube stuff and
Okay.
just spending a little bit of time doing the things that I love and making, little YouTube videos and stuff. And
Yeah.
um, that's what I like because
Okay.
it's me. It's me exactly as I am. Nobody's telling me what to do. No one's telling me what
Mhm.
to. I mean, for the Hot Wheels stuff, nobody tells you what to say. But it was like that was a big thing. Like you got 17 cameras. That was a big production
Oh
of
my
things,
goodness. Yeah.
and it was so much fun. And I met people from all over the world and learned so much about myself and so much about the world. Um, and then plus I got to build some of the coolest things ever. And it yeah, I'm so grateful for that experience and the people that I met and what they've taught me in my trade as well is,
Yeah.
this is what I love about what we do is that it is endless. It is endless. Like you'll continually meet people who know more than you and can teach you something. And so I
Yeah.
think that's just so neat. It's like you'll meet someone that does the exact same thing, but it's like, hey, I have this tip or this trick.
Mhm.
And it's never ending learning.
Yeah. 25 years later, right?
Yeah. I'll learn
Never
forever.
ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you came full circle because you flipped a coin to decide between welding and cars, and
Mhm.
now you're doing cars and welding on TV for everybody to be in awe and inspired by you. What an incredible full circle moment. Are you still doing stuff on cars now that you've like kind of gotten back to that a little bit and found the meshing of the two, or do you still mostly focus on
Uh,
the fabrication and whatnot, non-car related? Oh, you just muted. Uh-oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
there.
Ruh-roh.
How
Oh,
about
there we go.
we go? There we go. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Technology is not my thing. You want me to build something, I'll do it, but don't expect me to know how to run a computer.
I know. I feel the same way. I'm like, I can fix a car. And it's ironic because there's so many computers on cars and I can fix those. But when it comes to like real computers, I'm like, nope.
Yeah, no thanks.
So do you do stuff on cars in your own time now or just on the shows? Do you got some projects going on?
Yeah. So when I got back from Hot Wheels and I think I had just this drive and I was just like, I've built so many things for so many people now. And in my younger years, I was like, well, I can't wait to build my own truck. And then so I thought, you know what? I'm going to look for the truck that I've been wanting since I was 18
Ooh,
years old. And
okay.
so Mike Hall from Rust Valley, I called him up and I was like, hey, Mike, I'm looking for a truck. It's like, I'm pretty specific on what it is that I'm looking for. And he's like, well, come to my yard, check it out, see what I have. And so I went there and I looked around and I saw this truck and I was like, that one, that's the truck I want. I'm really bad at buying things because I was like, here, take all my money. But he knew, like when I got there, he was like, okay, this is kind of what you're looking for. And I know I want it to be a Chevy. I know I want it to be a big truck. I have a lot of things that I want this to be. Um, and yeah, he showed up there and there was a 1959 Chevy Viking that was just
Okay.
sitting there. And I was like, that's the one in the absolute middle of his yard. And for anybody who watches Rust Valley or knows anything about Mike Hall, he is a bit of a hoarder of vehicles. So when I say the middle of his yard, I'm talking like the middle of like hundreds of cars.
So like everything has to be hauled to move and make way for it.
Yeah. But I said, okay, I want this one. And then he said, well, I have this other truck. Do you want to take a look at it? And I was like, well, I'm only here for one. But then I looked at this other one, and it was a 1976 Scout Terra, which is like a Scout, but it's like a pickup. So it has
Yeah.
like a removable canopy or top
Okay.
on it. It's the coolest truck. I'd never seen anything like it. I said, oh, Mike, I'd really love this, but my budget is what my budget is. And he said, okay, tell you what, like, game of paper, rock, scissors. You win, you can have $500. I win, you pay me $1,500 or whatever it was that he said. I said, deal. And then I ended up winning. So I got my truck and that truck. And then while I was there, he ended up giving me another truck for a parts truck because he needed the space. So anyways, I have three. I bought three trucks. So I have three project trucks now. But
Okay.
it has been a really cool experience because Rust Valley now has a YouTube channel because the TV world is kind of a bit of a standstill. And so they started their YouTube channel and doing everything on YouTube. And that was great because then that was kind of a really great way for me to start up my YouTube. Because I had talked to him saying, like, I want to just do this for me, for my own YouTube stuff. But then they used it on their stuff too. And it's been really fun because I've got to work with Mike and Blair. And Blair's just absolutely incredible. And so the truck that I bought, he ended up helping me do a lot of the body work in their shop. Nice. And so I worked there, they had their YouTube stuff on it. I had my YouTube stuff on it. And it was just such a cool experience. We took actually the whole truck out with a crane rather than moving every single thing. We took it out with a crane, picked it up and popped it over. And, I bring my kids to the whole part of it, which has been really fun for me. So a lot of my YouTube videos, my kids are in it, and Elia has taken a shine to doing the videos. And so you'll see a lot of the videos I do. He's commentating, he's saying exactly what he thinks is happening. And oh my goodness, it is just the funniest thing. And
that's awesome. I love it. How incredible. What a cool story. So you have three trucks. Yeah. I feel like we definitely could be sisters from another mister because there's like you're too many vehicles to work on. It's I feel you.
Yeah.
And I think I saw something about you bought a house that like came with all of the stuff in it, including a bunch of projects. Tell me about this. What happened here?
Yeah. So I just, I decided I want a nice house for the kids and I, and like, what do I want to find? And I ended up coming across this house. It was a friend who, shared some information with me. And then I met these older couples that had got it. And the one older couple, they got, as they got older, they ended up going into a home, and I ended up meeting them, and they're like, we're happy to sell the house to you, but we don't want to do anything with it. Like, we have all of our stuff here, and they just didn't want to spend the time to get rid of all the stuff. And I was like, what do we got? Like, what are we talking about here? I grew up with a dad that had all the stuff in the yard. So like, let's talk about this. And he came and he showed me around, and I'm talking like dune buggies. There's trikes, there's motorbikes, bicycles, all these tools, I mean, there's everything from like dentures to bear rugs that I'm picking apart, and all these things that I'm just going through all of these sheds because it's, I think there's 6 sheds in total, and each of them were full to the brim with things.
Oh my gosh.
And so it has been hilarious for the kids and I. And, my dad comes up all the time, and he's just like, what treasures are we finding here? And my brother and my brother-in-law, all that stuff. People keep coming up, and I'm like, go for it. Go through the sheds, pick up what you want, take it home. And yeah. So, but walking through the back, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to get this going. This is another project for me.
How recent was this? This sounds like this was relatively recent.
So I've been in my house now for just over a year.
Okay. Yeah. And you're still finding more stuff, I'm sure.
All the time. I mean, there's some challenges of being like, single mom, trying to raise 2 babies, run a business and build a truck. And, there's a lot of other things that I do for myself of like, races and competitions and stuff that I still like to do for me. So there's not a lot of free time. But,
so that's my next question for you. I mean, you are doing all the things. like you said, your mom, you're business owner, you're on TV, you're building projects for yourself, you're doing your fitness stuff, you're doing all sorts of incredible things, and you seem so sane and upbeat and like relaxed and well rested. Like, how the heck are you balancing all of this? Have you figured out
Well,
how to clone yourself? Like, what is your secret?
well, I'm certainly not well rested. I'll tell you this. There's a lot of caffeine that I have running through these veins here. But
Okay.
I think it's finding the balance, but also not putting a ton of expectation on yourself. I think that's what we do as moms is we have so many expectations of us to visually be all of the things and make sure the dinner's on the table and make sure that the house is clean, make sure now you're an independent woman, so you're making money and you're running a successful business and your kids are all these like that's a lot of pressure for women to have on them. And no, I do a lot of those things, but I don't do them all at the same time. Sometimes my kids is like, hey guys, we're having leftover pasta for 3 nights in a row. And then we're going to go outside and you guys are going to help me do something outside. Like you guys are helping me clean the yard. And, my kids are so incredible, understanding what it is that I do and knowing how much help that I need in order to maintain a space like we have in our home and running my business. And, there's YouTube videos of Kira coming onto installs with me, and she's lifting things upstairs with me and installing railings. And, the kids are helping me on my truck. It's like, hey kids, we're learning to rebuild a carburetor today. But it's including them into these things, I think is so important and making it fun. Like I have no expectations of them on these things, but show up, like make it fun. Just everything that I do, I try to make it enjoyable for me, for the people around me. And I think that's a huge thing is people will lose the idea of fun when it comes to those things because they take it so seriously. I just take nothing seriously. I guess that's what it is.
That's the secret. Don't take anything too
Don't
seriously.
take everything too seriously because it's, I know that in my business, I take a lot of my business and there are time and place that I have to take everything exceptionally seriously, but there's a time and place where I just have to be like, okay, today this expectation of me isn't going to be met. and that's okay because those things can't always flow the way that we want them to flow. So we have to understand that sometimes you're going to let people down and sometimes you're not, sometimes you're going to let yourself down. And, whether it's a fitness thing that I'm trying to do and I don't do as well, or I just decide that I just don't want to do it at all because my body is like, nope, you're done. Take a break, take a breather. You have to listen to those things because if you don't, that's where you get burnt out. That's where you get stressed. And I think that's it is a hard thing for moms, especially single moms, and to feel like they know when to just be like, okay, I can't do this, and that's okay, because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that's so important and such a powerful message. I think everybody needs to hear. Like, yes, you can do all the things. You can't do them all at the same time.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful statement. And giving yourself some grace and listening to your needs. And it sounds like you've created like really good almost boundaries for yourself too, of like carving out the space for these different things. So there's, I'm sure, a ton that goes into making it all work and the constant balancing act. But it looks like you're doing an amazing job from the outside. So I know it probably doesn't always feel that way.
Doesn't always feel that way. And there's nobody's life is Instagram perfect. And I post a lot of things about my life and that bring me joy and that I want to share. But I mean, nobody's life is easy. It's not easy being like trying to make sure that I'm, raising 2 children, by myself in a home and making sure everything is done. There's a lot of really challenging moments in that. And I struggle and I have to look at things and I lose out on things because I have to work so hard in order to give my kids the life I want them to have and let go of a lot of things for myself, expectations, or just, any of that you have to just kind of let go of to be like, hey, I'm a mom first. I'll always be a mom first. And so there's a lot that you can feel disappointed in yourself in when you make that a priority. But I think that's important. And it's like, okay, I'm willing to let someone else down. I'm willing to like let myself down in order to make sure that, my kid, I'm there when they need me. And I know that can be a challenge. Or making choices with, money, making sure I have enough money to, pay for this house alone. Like that's a lot of pressure for a single woman to be doing that by themselves, right?
Yeah. For anybody to be doing by
For
themselves.
anybody,
Absolutely. Yeah.
not just women, and anybody.
Yeah.
But
You talked briefly on, I mean, you mentioned the phrase burnout, and that when the burnout happens is when you're not honoring yourself and you're
Mhm.
not learning when to say no to things. Does that mean you've been through a burnout cycle, and how did you come, what was that like for you, and how did you come out of it?
So I think that this kind of goes a little deeper than that, because my mom, growing up, she worked a ton. And, more in my like high school years and stuff, when, I'm the youngest of four kids. And so when she felt ready, she went back to work. But, my mom got diagnosed with dementia at a pretty young age. I think she was 55. And we watched her just work herself into stress mode always. And so, I mean, there's never any one thing that's going to point at, those kinds of things that cause dementia.
Yeah.
But to watch what my mom went through, and to watch the struggles that she had, how stressed out she was, and then to now see that, my mom's been in a care home for, gosh, since COVID,
Oh, wow.
basically. And so, at 55 years old, my mom started, shifting and changing into this thing. And so it was more that I had watched her go through these things, that when I start to feel that, what I believe she was going through, then I have to be like, okay, I need to do something about this, because then I have that little bit of fear. Is like, is this going to happen to me if I overwork myself, if I put myself into, because my mom did everything for everybody always. Anybody asked something of her, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And she's
Mhm.
part of all the groups in town and all those things. And so, yeah, it was more so watching my mom go through it. And then, of course I go through the bits of it where I just try to do it all. And,
Yeah.
I try to be every, as much as I can, into each thing that I feel passionate about. My business, I'm making sure I'm at school for different functions, trying to make sure I'm doing my fitness stuff to keep up to competitions that I want to be doing. And yeah, it can be a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just have to take a step back and be like, whoa, what do I need to let go of right now? Where do I need to put myself in order to kind of regain my sanity, and make
Yeah.
sure that I don't put myself into that like overly stressed state? Because I just, I don't get to know my mom. My kids don't get to know my mom. Whereas, like, I would never want that to happen to my children.
Whew, I was not expecting that answer, and now my eyes are leaking a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I know that, like, that resonates so much for me, and I know a lot of people that probably resonates tremendously with that, like, always doing for everybody else, anybody who needs anything, and learning
Mhm.
when to draw that line, to avoid that burnout. What a powerful, I'm so sorry that you're going through that and have had to go through that, and at the same time, so amazing that it has had the lesson that it's taught you, to be able to be there for yourself first and foremost, and for your kids. And I'm seriously, like, I'm for those who are watching, like, I got all blurry eyed
Yeah,
while you
we're
were
gonna
talking. I
need
was
to
like,
make it
oh,
very fun.
wow, I apparently really needed this interview with you tonight, because I felt that.
Get into some deep stuff. I'm sorry.
No, that's a beautiful thing. I love that. I am here for it. That's what this is about. So thank you for sharing that. That's huge.
Sure, yeah.
Um, I just looked at the clock. We are like 30 seconds away from
Oh,
our hour being done, because that's what happens. We're gonna go a
I'm
few minutes
sorry.
over, if that's okay. No, gosh, no apologies. This was amazing. You're fantastic. Never any apologies, but we might go a few minutes over if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Um, Eh, Before I ask my final favorite question that I always like to ask, is there anything that we haven't touched on of your incredible life and your incredible journey that you are dying to share, something you're passionate about, sharing with folks?
Well, I mean, I think I know that just for me, um, like in my business, I think I haven't solely hired women, but I've been really loving working with, either teenage girls to come in and work with me. And I think just because of that first year that I had trying to get into the trade, and recognizing how uncomfortable it was for me, And so I've tried to work with a couple different high schools and stuff. And right now I have hired quite a few women into my business. And it's like, even just to give them a little bit, even just to give them a tidbit to
Yes.
enter into the trade, to know what to expect as from someone who's done it in probably one of the more challenging times to do it. And just mindset, and just understanding, how to put yourself into these places that, you're not always going to feel welcome. You're not always going to feel like that you belong in these spaces. But, it's just to go in with so much confidence. Like, I just want women to recognize what they're actually truly capable of. And that's something that is a really big thing for me, is whether it's somebody that wants to get into a trade, or, a mom that wants to hang her own pictures on her wall, like, learning how to just use a couple basic hand tools in order to change your oil, put a headlight in. All those things, I think, are so important for women to recognize that they can do these things. And I think there's a lot of my YouTube stuff that I'm trying to encourage women. I'm trying to start a program here in town where I can have women come and, let's build a coffee table. Let's learn to
Nice.
do these little things. Like, I want to teach women to use just the basic hand tools, just to really understand how capable they are. Because I think there's a lot of women out there that don't necessarily want to get into a trade, but they still want to know how to do the few things. And I think that's a really important thing too, is just to have the confidence and the comfortable space to learn how to do, any of these basic things
Yeah.
when it comes to using tools.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And because it translates into so many other areas of their life too, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
it's they learn that this thing that they thought was
Mhm.
scary and hard isn't actually scary and hard. Like, what else in their
Yeah.
life? Yeah.
Yeah.
And your whole, like, out of great adversity comes great things, right? Like, you came up in the industry when it wasn't convenient and easy to be a woman in these
Mhm.
trades, and then that you turned that into something beautiful by creating opportunities for other women. And there's so much of a theme of that in your life as well. You're an
Mhm.
incredible woman. I love all the things that you're doing. We definitely need to talk more offline and see what kind of fun collaborations we could maybe
So I
come
would
up
love
with.
that. I would absolutely love
We need to do something for sure.
that.
But for now, I will ask you my final question, and that is, we've probably shared a lot of this advice already, but because you've done a ton of knowledge in this interview thus far. But if you had the opportunity to go back and speak to little baby Rachel, um, what are your words of advice and wisdom to her?
Oh goodness. That's a I I wish I would have found my confidence a little earlier I feel like it took me a long time to find that space for myself, to feel accepted, but to be like, it's okay. Like, I love what I'm doing. Just, I have confidence in what I'm doing. Show up in any space that you go to with confidence, knowing that you deserve the respect, regardless of how little or how much knowledge you have, and whatever it is that you're doing, is that you can show up knowing that you deserve respect from people, regardless of how you show up in that space. And yeah, I think it took me a really long time to get really comfortable into what it was that I was doing in new spaces, because I would show up so meek and so worried and concerned, and always trying to, make sure that I was doing everything the right way. But and if I didn't, then I wouldn't have respect. But knowing that no matter what it is that you're doing, and you're trying, and you're there, and you're showing up, that you deserve respect. I think that's important for women, people, anybody, to know when they show up into a space, is that they immediately deserve that respect from other people.
Amen to that. Perfectly stated. You're phenomenal. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much
So
for having me tonight.
absolutely, it has absolutely been my honor. We're going to talk more, but for now, I'm going to
Absolutely.
be respectful of your time and let you go for the evening. And folks at home, I hope you guys enjoyed meeting Rachel as much as I did. What a cool woman! Such an incredible story. Definitely make sure you go check out her YouTube, check out her social media, follow along on her journey and her adventures. This cool truck builds multiple plural because she's like me and can't have just one going on at a time. I understand it's a disease. But with that, guys, I'm going to wish you guys a good night. Big thank you again to our sponsor, AAPEX. If you're not familiar with the AAPEX show, definitely go check them out. It is November 5th through November 7th this year in Las Vegas. It is the largest automotive aftermarket products expo. It is absolutely a phenomenal event, and it's definitely something that you need to be at. And a big thank you to them for supporting this podcast. And make sure you come back next week. We are meeting with another incredible tradeswoman. And of course, every Monday, I release an archive episode of this series, Past Life, on Instagram. So 2 times a week, you get an opportunity to listen to or watch the With Her Two Hands podcast. Until next time, guys, be good to yourself, be good to one another, be good human beings, and we will see you later.